This is Tammy with Bar R Barn Quilts. The barn quilt that I am making this time is Crowfest 2, and it is a 1x1 plywood. I am taking a 2x4 sheet of plywood and I'm cutting it down to a 1x4, two 1x4s, and then taking it to the miter saw and cutting that down into 1x1 plywood planks. I am now sanding them down. I will sand the tops that I'll be painting. I'll sand all 4 edges. I am using 80 grit sandpaper, and that's what I use on all of my barn quilts. And as always, clean up after yourself. I've moved up to the woman cave and I am putting a coat of primer on the board. It is a well-known primer. If you look at it, it is tinted gray. I did that myself. Usually I buy it tinted, but they've stopped doing that with some of the primers. So I just did it myself. I just like to paint on gray over painting on white. So it's just a personal preference. May not suit you or others, but it works for me. The grid pattern for the Crowfest 2 is a 7x7. The math on this one was a little tricky, but it worked out just fine. Once I get the grid pattern done, I then can add and subtract lines to get the image. And then after I get the image, I will then go back and use a little bit of primer to cover up the lines that I don't need. That way the paint covers better. As I draw the pattern, I go and I erase the lines that I don't need. My old primer I used, I would just erase lines, and for the most part would never have to put another coat of primer on those lines, and the paint would cover them. But with this primer, I found it's just easier to go paint over the lines. That way when you paint the color you want, those lines pretty much disappear. There are 8 colors that I used on this barn quilt. In the corners, you see from what I'm going to actually paint to what is on there was some extra images. The board was too small, so I eliminated those. It would have just been too much for a 1x1 board, but if I'm doing the 2x2 or 3x3, then by all means I could add those because there'd be enough room on the board for those. The first color I started with is black, and I'm starting with that in the middle, which is the crow. Once I get done with this, I'll start the second coat of green, which is the second most color that I have, and then move on to second coats for each of those. Two of my favorite colors for barn quilts is blue and green. So on this one, I got to use more like the darker teal green on this. It really turned out well if you watched to the end. So I'm putting the first coat of green on now, and then I will be coming back and putting second coat on black and green before moving forward. On normal barn quilts for me, I normally don't paint a border, and I call this a double border. A single border for me would be that goes all the way to the edge and say it's black trim all the way around or green trim. There's only one, but this one you have the green on the outside, and then just inside you see I have a gray line that'll be painted black. So it's a double line. And I will say, once I got to painting that inside gray, that it was kind of difficult to stay straight. All right, here I'm painting the stem of the pumpkin. Once I get done with this, I will be putting the second coat on for black green and for the brown. Once I finish these second coats, I'll then be starting on the actual pumpkin colors. I did end up putting 3 coats of black, 3 coats of green. The brown only took 2 coats, I believe. And then the pumpkin, I think all the colors in that took 3 coats on those as well. It still amazes me what the difference is between a first and second coat. In person, it needs a third coat, but it just pops so much whenever you get that second coat on. Once we get done with the second coat on both of these, and we touch up the stem, we then will start painting the pumpkin colors. We moved on to the pumpkin. There are 5 colors left, and there's about 4 blocks per color. There is tan, which I'm doing here. There is a light gray, and then there is 3 different colors of orange. I do a first coat on all of them, and then I'll go back and do a second coat and then a third coat. I think gray might have only been 2, but I know I had to do a few touch-ups on it. Painting like this, I call it patchwork. It's where you can randomly just put colors wherever you want. You see I'm using little pieces of tape. That tape is to mark down where I want to paint the actual blocks for each color. That way they're spaced out, they're not next to each other. You can lay it out beforehand, and you don't have to worry about accidentally painting somewhere that you don't want to. putting the last color in the pumpkin, which is the dark orange. So that'll put first coat done on it. I'm then going to be moving to the double border, the inside of that double border, and putting the black on it. On the inside double border, I did decide to have a little bit of contrast on that, and so instead of it being pure black, I did more of a really, really dark charcoal, just so it wouldn't run straight into the tail of the crow. As I stated earlier, it was a very difficult to keep painting straight. I think I tried like 2 or 3 different paint brushes, just smaller ones, angled, flat, just to try to keep it as straight as possible. All of my barn quilts are made with no tape, 99.9% of the time. There is a couple I will use tape on. So this is all hand drawn, and I say it's made with love. So if you ever see any of my barn quilts and it's a little wiggly, it's not because I didn't try, it's because love is showing through. I'm now doing second coat on the pumpkin, and once I get that done, I will then be doing second coat on the charcoal black of the double border. Once I get the 4 blocks of one color done, what determines the next one I go to, because with some of them they're still wet and I decide to just move on, is I pick the colors where they don't butt up against each other. That way there's no mixing of colors. And then arm placement. That's one reason that I did this crow first, that I could literally lay my hand down on him and then be able to maneuver around to get second, third coats on each of the blocks. Once I finish the second coats on all these, I do put a third coat. So when you get to the very end image and you're like, it doesn't look like it's completely finished, it's because I put a third coat on. And in some of my barn quilts, I'll put 4, 5, and even 6 coats on some colors. And I don't do that on camera. So when you see at the end of the painting, it may not be done, but then when you look at the images that I add at the end, they are completely finished at that time. If you're interested in a barn quilt like this one or any other ones that you see, you can contact me. The information will be at the end of the video. I do anything from 1x1 up to 4x4s. I make them out of plywood, I make them out of boards, and on the smaller ones, I do jigsaw, where I cut up the image and put them back together. Thank y'all for watching, and love you.